Hello, everybody. Welcome to the BSIA's 10th anniversary celebration. It's been a bit of an uphill struggle, I've got to admit, getting this video together in such a short time and with so many different variables changing, but hopefully we've managed it, and we're now streaming live to everybody here. This is also going to be recorded, and it will be on YouTube for people to revisit, and for those who didn't get to see it this time around to be able to see it again. Thank you for being here, first and foremost, and not only this time, but to any regular that's been to any of our meetings. We all appreciate your presence so much. I can't really put it into words properly, so I want to get it out of the way first. Tonight, the BSI is basically you guys, everybody who's going to be watching this, everybody who's been to our meetings, the general public all together as a collective is what we are. So our program today is various BSI members, some of them community members like myself, or Simon, Eric, Mike, and the rest of them are just people just like you. Some of them started off as complete amateurs, as did I when I was very new in the BSIA. Some of them are professionals, and every level in between. So the first thing that we're going to start off with tonight, we're going to have in a bit, we're going to swap over to Eric Ems, who's another committee member, and he's going to give a short message to everybody, and then we'll continue with our show. I just wanted to have a quick, reminisce, basically, about my experience, some of my experience in the BSIA. For me, when I first appeared, it was a true sliding doors moment, if you know what I mean. I had just bought myself my first proper large telescope. I'd never shared it with anybody. I was just tinkering away at my home for a few months. I can't even remember where I saw the advert. It's been a while now. But I remember I did see it somewhere, and I was thinking to myself, oh, it's a bit far. It's a winter's night. I don't know if I can be bothered, and this and the other. So I thought to myself, why not? What have I got to lose? So I went down there, and 7 guys around a few telescopes, and 10 years later, it's grown to thousands of members. We've been all over the media. I mean, people usually do articles on us and then contact us and say, hey, we've done this thing. Private Eye did a 2-page cartoon spread of us, which is really nice. We've been on the Financial Times, on the BBC News, so on and so forth, in most, if not all, of the major astronomy magazines like Astronomy Now, Sky at Night, so on and so forth. We've had many foreign journalists appear, which is really nice. So people from around the world have an inkling of the BSIA, which is very nice. One of the things which we hope to achieve with the beginning of these live broadcasts is the virtual expansion of the BSIA outside of the hub. Hopefully in the future, when we reconvene for our normal meetings at the hub, we'll continue these live events and just televise what we're doing there, and get other people from around the world who are also BSIA members but non-residents in the UK and in London who can't come to our meetings physically. They can join in virtually with us and share skies. So, for example, imagine when it's summer for us here in the UK and we don't have much dark, we can concentrate on solar astronomy, for example. We could have friends closer to the equator, for example, and they would have good 10, 11 hours of darkness, depending on their distance away from the equator. They could share their dark skies with us. We could share some good solar astronomy with them. It would be a really nice thing to try and work towards. amongst others. That's just one idea of many that we have. I'm going to come back to you a bit later on. Right now, I'm going to transition over to Eric Ems, who has a message for all of you. So we'll go over to him now.
This is definitely the next era for the Baker Street Irregular Astronomers, and thank you for the work put in. We'll look forward to hearing what Eric has to say when we get the technical glitch sorted out. So, sounds good. Yeah, here we are, 10 years on from the very first meeting. Our very first meeting was, in fact, had many parallels to this one. We were trying something new for the first time. There was a small group of people, gathering of people and telescopes and Regent's Park, and nobody knew what was going to happen. We didn't know whether it was going to take off, how successful it was going to be, whether the format of the meeting we were trying to hold was right. But of course, time, as it's moved on, has proven us right, and I still think we hit a nerve with people and struck a chord, and people enjoy what we do in Regent's Park. This, I think, is definitely a way forward for the Baker Street Irregular Astronomers, because even once society gets back to normal, there will still be, as there always have been, a lot of people who want to be able to join in with the meetings who haven't been able to because of reasons of workload or family or geography. Now we can open ourselves up to a bigger audience. So what you've started here, I think, is going to carry us a very long way forward for the next 10 years. 10 years ago, this was the fruition of an idea which had been bouncing around in my head for a while since I started working in the telescope industry a few years previously at the widescreen sensor. And it was a chance meeting, really, with Carl Drake, who was the other founder member. If it hadn't been for Carl, BSIA would never have happened. The idea for the meeting, there were several people who had the idea, but the sort of format for the meeting was something I'd been knocking around with for a while, but with absolutely no idea of a venue to hold it at. Obviously, London is quite well served with astronomical societies, but there was nobody there doing exactly what I thought was needed. So I used to see customers coming to the shop where on Baker Street, young families, people were a little bit nervous about undertaking a hobby which they thought was going to be intimidating, and they just wanted somewhere relaxed to be able to actually go and look through these things after dark, talk to people, just feel reassured. And you can't do that with most of the other societies in the way that you can with BSIA. It was Carl who suggested the venue, and my first and last to date ride in a police car Carl drove me up to Regent's Park. We drove into the park through on the lanes, which was quite a novelty at the time. And he showed me the hub. And even though it was only 15 minutes walk, I've been working for several years, I'd never been there. Immediately, I could see that this was going to be the perfect place to have the meetings that we've all grown used to over the years. Without him, it wouldn't have worked because being a police officer and based in the park, he had the contacts. If we'd have just come in from the outside, the authorities, I doubt very much whether BSIA would ever have got underway, at least with the degree of flexibility and freedom that we've been shown over the years. It was essential, really, that we had somebody on the inside to negotiate on our behalf, because we're still the only group that's allowed to use the park after hours. Without him there at the beginning, it wouldn't happen. So Carl stepped down from the committee a while back. He was due to join us tonight, but as he's a police officer, unfortunately he got called back to duty today, so he was going to join in. But unfortunately he can't on this occasion. But what we're hoping is that these virtual meetings will become a bigger part of our everyday life here at BSIA, even once lockdown. So even if people are working, even if people are out of town, we hope they can be able to join in the future. So that's how BSIA got started, and we grew very quickly. BSIA has always been more than about a committee or one person, any individual effort. It's been a collective effort, and we've had some very good committee members over the years who have vast amount of time, effort, and expense sometimes. Currently, Nick and Joanna, who we're talking to there, Mike Davis, Red Mike, you all know Mike, and Eric Ems. In the past, we've had many, many others. We've done a superb job, too many almost to list. But thanks to everybody, we're still here today, even though we haven't had a meeting for a while. People are still keen, and we will be back. And we're looking forward to welcoming everybody back to the hub as soon as we can.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, right. Thanks for that, Simon. That's really cool. Right. After that message, right now we're gonna go to some of the irregulars now from the committee members. Next up is some city deep space imaging, urban deep space imaging. One of our irregulars by the name of Phil Halper, who's quite an experienced urban imager now, and very good photographer he is. He's going to show you a very technical, highly technical way of being able to take deep space photographs from a light polluted inner city location. There are many, many different ways to go about the same thing. He's chosen one particular avenue. You will see another way tonight as well, but both of them involve some high-end equipment. Don't let that put you off if you're a beginner or an amateur. We're showing you the higher level wow stuff. You can easily achieve your own results with much smaller.
Hey, welcome to Central London.
Equipment. Much smaller, much cheaper equipment. Standard cameras, a small refractor, the correct mount is all you need to get started in this hobby. What we're going to show you now is a relatively advanced way of doing it, a very technical way. Some amateurs might get a little bit lost in the jargon, but bear with it because Philip takes you through it really quite well. And everything is presented in a visual format, so he's actually going to take you through his process step by step now. So whether you understand some of the technical aspects or not, it'll be a very interesting journey to see how somebody can take a split picture of a deep space object from a light polluted city and just grab that faint light out of the sky and make a beautiful picture out of it. So we're about to transition over to that video now, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, to Phil Halper.
place where people think you cannot do deep space photography. Deep space is taking pictures of things like nebulas and galaxies and so on. But it is possible, and I'm going to show you how to do it and what equipment we're using. So first off, the most important thing probably is actually the mount. You need a very sturdy mount. You want it to be equatorial mount. There are two types of mount: out as, which moves like that, and equatorial, which will move much more like the Earth moves, so that when the mount is moving, it's moving much more sync with the Earth, and that allows you to do long exposures, and long exposures is key to deep space photography. You want to align it properly with the North Celestial Pole, and this mount, which is the HEQ5, it has a little scope sitting straight through the mount, and that enables you to align it properly with Polaris. Polaris, the North Star, but actually Polaris is not perfectly in the North Celestial Pole, so you want to use a phone app like Polaris Finder or something like that, that will tell you actually where to put Polaris in the little circle that you see here. It won't be perfectly in the center, but there'll be some kind of offset. Obviously, the other most important thing, I mean maybe it's the most important thing, is the tube itself. So this is what's called a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. It's an 8-inch scope, and obviously the bigger the better, but there are drawbacks to going too big because you can't move it. They have to cool down big ones as well. And I like to go out to a dark sky site and pack this in a suitcase, and that's sort of impractical for telescopes that are, well, maybe I could go to 9¼ inch, but I think 11, 14 inch, which would be the next biggest, they're kind of impractical to move around. So now this telescope is mainly designed to be optimized for taking pictures of the moon and the planets. It is not really designed for deep space photography. But, and the reason for that is that it's what's called f10. So if you know regular photography, the f-stop tells you sort of how wide the aperture is. So there's a little circle maybe in the lens. You can see it actually in some lenses. And for low f-stops, it's wide open, allowing sort of more light in, and or more specifically actually putting it over a wider area. So that will give you a wider field of view, and much what we call faster optics. So it's quicker to sort of get the same image, as it were. So f10 to f2, f2 is probably about 20 times faster. So we really want to be at f2. This telescope is at f10, but we have a little gizmo in here, and what that does is going to take the telescope from f10 to f2, and this gizmo is called Hyperstar. So let's get it out and we'll see. So what we're going to do is unscrew the secondary mirror. So there's a primary mirror here, and there's a secondary mirror here. So that's normal in a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. What that does is it allows you to sort of fold up the light and have these big buckets of light, and that means you get a sort of large aperture for a portable telescope, one that's quite lightweight and not too expensive. So what we do is we're going to replace the secondary mirror with this, the Hyperstar lens. And the other thing that is really, really, really important for deep space imaging in the city is, I don't know if you can see it here, there is a light pollution filter, and not just any old light pollution filter, because particularly now with LED street lights, regular light pollution filters don't work very well. So what you want is this is called a triple narrowband filter. So what it means is only 3 wavelengths of light, very narrow wavelengths, are let in. Everything else is rejected. So that enables you to sort of beat the light pollution, particularly for emission nebulas. That's where it really works well. But you can, I've actually done it on reflection nebulas, it still works. So what we're going to do is unscrew this. There's the lens that we're going to put on. Let's get that ready. And we take the secondary mirror off. And there you go, there's our secondary mirror. Put that in there. And this just screws in like a jam jar. And as you can see, in a few seconds, we've reconfigured the telescope from f10 to f2, making it like, I don't know, it's at least 20 times faster, I think. So that's a radical, radical change. So the other thing I should point out that's on this telescope, this is a red dot finder. So what that does is it enables you to sort of align the telescope. And this is what's called a guide camera. And what you do is, guide scope, and what you do is you put a little camera here, and what that will do is send corrections to the mount, and if it's drifting slightly off, then it will correct it. So the other thing we need to do is get a camera on here. So let's show you what the camera looks like. Now, this is a special astronomy camera, and just put that on there. So you can see that there's got no buttons, it's got no monitor, it's really just the sensor, and it also has a cooling unit. Another good thing for deep space photography is to cool the camera down. This is cooled to about minus 20 degrees centigrade. It probably can go colder than that, but you have to be careful because sometimes frost can appear and then you're in trouble. So we just screw that on like that. And this is our setup basically, and there'll be a cable running here, and that will go to the computer, and that is actually what's controlling everything. Now you might think, hang on, now there's this big protrusion in the way, why doesn't that get in the way of the picture? Well, there always was a protrusion, there was always a hole there, so even without this you still have to do secondary mirror. And what this does is it just putting this just reduces the amount of light coming in just a little bit, not very much. You won't notice this, it's not going to be like a big circle in the way of your image. Only if there's a very bright star will you might see a little something like that, and you can probably correct that with Photoshop or something. So once we've got this all set up, there was one other thing that's very good, is you put you cable it up like this, and you put this thing on, that will go here, and that's called a batten-off mask, and what it does is it helps you focus. So it will create like a cross on the screen, and you would just align these crosses. And there are tutorials on batten-off mask. Oh, another tutorial you might want to check is how to balance the mount. There are tutorials on that. That's quite important for good alignment. So good alignment, you want good balancing, you want good polar alignment using the app. There is little gizmos you can do to help you polar align, like Polemaster. Also, this mount has been tuned, what's called, so to improve its accuracy by a company called Dark Frame Optics. There's a guy called Dave Woods there, and that's had very, very impressive performance because long exposures requires accuracy on the tracking. Okay, and the last thing is what we do is we take lots and lots of pictures. So we don't just take one very long exposure. Instead, I probably do like 2-minute exposures, something like that, and then just take lots and lots of them all night, because what that will do is enable you to boost the signal and reduce the noise. And that's very, very important in deep space photography. And then we do what are called calibration frames. So a flat frame is exposing, usually, well, I do it at twilight. Some people use like a light box, but I've not got that to work. So I take them at twilight, and I use a program called Nebulosity to capture the images. And when I get the flat frame, there's something called the pixel value. That wants to be about 21,000. So I check that that's at 21,000 by changing the exposure. And this has to be done before the stars come out if you're doing it at sunset or or sunrise, doesn't matter. So there's your flat frames, and that will also correct, that will make an even amount of light on the image generally, and it will also get rid of dust bunnies and things like that. And to calibrate the flat frames, you take something called bias frames, and they are, what they are is you take very, very short exposures, like, like 0.0001 of a second or something like that. And the last thing you can do is a dark frame, where you cover the sensor and then take the same exposure time as your regular exposures. You also cover the sensor for the bias frames as well. Now, for a cooled camera, you might not need dark frames. So it's up to you to see what you think is necessary. And that's basically the setup. So now what we're going to do is look at processing the image. Okay, so we're first going to open up one of what we call a sub. So this is just a 1-2 minute exposure. And this is the North American Nebula, and that's what it looks like as it sort of comes out the camera. First thing we're going to do is what's called automatic background extraction, and notice that the color goes from sort of blue to black, and then we stretch it, and now we see the nebula. So stretching is basically making the blacks blacker, the whites the whiter, and this is a boost stretch, so now we can see much more of the nebula. So that's just a single image. We're also going to look at some of the calibration frames. Don't ignore that, that's the Iris Nebula. So that's an offset, that's just a very black image. And let's see, there'll also be a flat frame, which is a very light image. And now this is the stacked image, and we can see there's much more detail, but it's still kind of a bit messy. So we're going to do a few things to sort of clean it up. But here you can see there's a lot more detail in the image, and there's a lot less noise. So that's the results of stacking. Now, we've overexposed it here, massively overexposed it, and that's just a feature of this program called PixInsight, which you have to do in order to sort of get it out of PixInsight. So we've saved the image, and this is the stacked image, and I've got an old version, so I'll just replace it. And let's have a look. We'll open it now in Photoshop, where we'll do a lot more things to it. So one of the most important things, this is an absolutely amazing tool called Gradient Exterminator, and it's just going to even out the light. You can see that something's gone wrong with this image, but we can fix it. And so we do a few steps here for the Gradient Exterminator, and you'll see it's going to even the light out very dramatically. So there we go. Here's Gradient Exterminator. Said OK, and boom. There you can see that's done a lot. There's still a lot more to do. I'm not going to do every adjustment here, but I'll just show you a few. So one of the most important ones is this thing called levels. So we'll just, there you can see the space is a lot blacker, the image is a lot more even. So there's a lot of adjustments to make, and there's some great tools that you can get. So this is Astro Tools, and it's got this thing called lighten the deep sky objects and darken the background, and it's got sort of two versions of that. And we'll plug both of those in and see the result. And there's lots and lots of, there's loads of features in these action packs, as they're called. There's various versions of them here, they can do absolute wonders to your image. So they're really easy to use. You literally just push a button, and they can really enhance the detail. They can clean things up. They can get rid of a lot of the artifacts. There you can see the things are starting to come along now. You're starting to see a bit of detail, and we'll brighten up the nebula again. Look at the final picture, and you'll notice it's not in the right orientation because it's supposed to be the North American nebula. So we'll just flip it, and there we go. That looks like North America.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Phil, for that beautiful walkthrough of how to do some advanced deep space imaging from an urban location. Now, going away slightly from visual telescopes, light is in many different wavelengths, not just the ones that we can see with our eyes and that a normal telescope standard telescope that you might think of uses, the visible spectrum. There's a telescope for basically every type of light in the electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves all the way up to X-rays and gamma rays. Right now, we're going to look towards the radio end of the spectrum. One of our regulars, lovely chap named Graham, likes to search for, amongst other things, for meteorites as they come through our atmosphere, and he uses a radio telescope-like device. He'll explain the technicalities. It's not strictly a radio telescope what he uses, but it's a very, very similar. It's a very, very similar concept. Radio astronomy, which is the banner of this kind of thing, is infected by clouds in the sky, weather conditions, day or night. The radio waves penetrate through all the clouds, everything. It doesn't matter if it's day or night because you're not looking at visible light, so you get a different bit of the spectrum. So radio astronomy can be done 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, day or night, cloudy, rain, snow, doesn't really matter. Okay, you will get some interference with bad weather, but you can still do it. So right now, we're going to be transitioning very shortly, I do believe. I'm just going to have a quick check. Yep, we're ready. We've got the thumbs up. And I'm going to hand you over to Graham, who's going to chat and explore the subject in more detail with you. Hello, Graham.
Hello.
Okay, hopefully. Let's see.
Yep, we're there. Okay, Graham, can you hear me okay?
Sounds good. Have you got my screen?
Excellent. We're all there.
We don't have it. Yes, we do.
Yep. Right, we're all in. Excellent. So whenever you're ready, please go ahead, Graham.
Okay. This is this is good. Let's turn my sign down. Somebody wave at me if it doesn't work. Okay, I want to talk to you about detecting meteors by radar, and this is, if you like, a way of doing astronomy in the rain, because I'm going to be detecting meteors not by looking at them, but by bouncing radio waves off them. And at the back of me, you may see this system. It's there. It's been going now for about 3.5 years. And even though it's solid cloud up there tonight, I can see, I can detect meteors. If something goes wrong with the technology, then that will give you a link to where I've got lots of information on my
Graham,
website.
sorry, you're booming a little bit. Speak a little bit lower if you can, please.
Because I can't hear him if he is, because it'll give me feedback. So I'm going to keep talking. Make a hand gesture, Nick, if there's something wrong. That website there will take you to a load of information, including an earlier version of this talk. So if it all goes pear-shaped, you can get my talk from there. So let's run through the whole thing. The idea is that I want a transmitter, a radar transmitter, a radio transmitter, and I'm going to pick up the signals from it using my receiver. But where I'm going to put this radio transmitter, I'm going to choose one which is, spoiler alert, in southern France. And of course, obviously, I'm not able to receive
Graham,
radio.
excuse me, can you hear me, Graham?
There's a dirty, great big lump of earth in the way.
Graham, could you talk slightly lower, please?
Over the top between the two of us. The meteor goes over the top between the two of us. Then the radio wave will reflect off the meteor, or to be absolutely more honest, will bounce off the ionization trail left behind it, and I'll pick the thing up. So, what do we want for a transmitter? I don't want to build one myself. That would be illegal. It would also be expensive, and technically, I don't want it coincided with the receiver. So, I want a transmitter that's there, and I'm going to piggyback on somebody else's, right sort of distance away. If the transmitter was in Brighton, I'd hear it all the time. If it were in Tasmania, I'd never hear it, however many meteors go across. So, right sort of distance away. I want it powerful enough. Now, actually, it doesn't have to be that powerful, but the more powerful it is, the stronger the signal I've got my end, which means I don't need to worry too much about masthead preamps, decent aerials, and high-quality coax cable. Between these sorts of frequencies, because if you go too low, the signal gets to you anyway. Even without a meteor, it bounces off the upper atmosphere or something like that. If the frequency is too high, it will get absorbed by the atmosphere, and you're not going to hear it, even if it's line of sight. Don't want any local interference, because if this transmitter is transmitting, say, on the same frequency that BBC television is transmitting on from Crystal Palace, obviously I'm not going to hear something that's in France if I've got a strong local signal. And I want it to be always on as well. I don't want it to be relying on some local who might change their mind, switch it off after 6 months or something. So what I do, and what most people in England come up with, is a transmitter, a Graves, which is in southern France, and it's near the town of Dijon. famous for its mustard. It's run by the French military, so we're not actually 100% certain what this transmitter is there for, but it's probably detecting space junk, satellites, that sort of thing, but who knows. And the frequency is just where we want it to be, and actually 143.05 megahertz. That's quite close to an amateur radio band, so there's a good chance of picking up amateur radio aerials and those sorts of things, save you having to reinvent the wheel. The aerial itself, you want to be directional. Actually, you probably don't need it to be as directional as I originally thought. More on that in a moment. You don't want to spend too much for it. Let's have a look at the sort of area I might be detecting meteors from. Red dot, that's the transmitter, grabs, and it's transmitting radio waves all the time. And this circle gives you the sort of indication of the area over which you're going to be able to, or the meteors are going to be able to see that transmitter. So anywhere within that circle, the radio wave for the transmitter will get up to the meteor, hopefully bounce off it. Here's a circle centered on me. Anywhere within that red circle, this is an area over which I can see meteors. So if a meteor is reflecting a radio wave and the meteor is within that circle, I ought to be able to detect it. So obviously it's this shaded area which is the area that I'm going to be detecting meteors from. And I said the aerial needs to be directional. My aerial points towards Grave near Dijon, but you can see from here, actually, I might be detecting meteors from the northeast of us in Hamburg, or behind me, Manchester, Liverpool, down the northern bits of Italy, for example. My aerial looks something like that. I did get it commercially made. It's useful because I can carry this thing up to Regent's Park sometimes. I've got one on the roof at home. I've got another portable setup, and it will withstand getting bashed about in the tube and on the way up there. But people have made aerials out of copper tubing, out of coat hangers, so you don't need anything that desperately expensive or clever. The receiver, obviously, you want something that is going to be able to cover the frequency, and that receiver would do extremely nicely. I'd rather like one of those, but it doesn't quite meet the criteria of being inexpensive. This thing, this is absolutely wonderful. It's a software-defined radio dongle, and this little device plugs into the computer into its USB port, and the aerial plugged in the bottom, down the bottom right-hand corner, and it's tunable by using software to tune it anyway from the long wave band up to microwave region. So you can use this for picking up Radio 1, BBC, ITV television, police broadcast, weather satellite, and it's easy to tune to 143.05 megahertz. The software that runs on it, tunes the radio, as I said. It also decodes it. So whether it's AM, FM, or any of the other clever modulation methods, it will decode it, and it will give you a visual display. So you've got something to look at going across the screen. You say, "Oh, look, there's a meteor." You're not looking at the meteor. You're looking at a display of a radio signal. Inexpensive, easy to use, and there's a lot of stuff available on the internet. Inexpensive, it's free. All of this stuff is free. It's the last one, though, Spectrum Lab, that I use and most other people use. It fails on one of the criteria. It's not easy to use. But there are a lot of people been doing this before. They've written configuration files, so you don't actually need to know how the software works unless you want to tweak it. You just load the whole thing up and it works for you. And it produces a screen that's on my computer behind me, which looks something like that. Now, and it also needs another bit of software in order to tune the dongle, the software-defined radio dongle. So, what you can't see from here is that the screen is continually moving from right to left, which, when you like, gives you a time axis going along the horizontal axis. The vertical lines are 5 seconds apart, and think of it as a piece of ticker tape or paper going under one of those barometers, giving you a time display. Going up the vertical axis, frequency. This red line represents 143.05 megahertz, the frequency I'm trying to detect. But if the meteor is coming towards you, a little bit of Doppler shift, the frequency will go up. If it's going away, it will go down. And also having a little bit of an indication what's happening either side helps you to visually pick up, is that a meteor? Is it a little bit of local interference? So here's the sort of display that you might get. This is a recording. I'll tell you where I'm streaming my system to in a moment. The little line about 10% of the way down is local interference. Now there's a dot there, just going across the word frequency. It might be a meteor. It's just a little bit off the frequency, so I'm not sure about that. But that one there is definitely a meteor. It's a tiny grain of sand one. Don't think of a big space rock. It's only lasted in the atmosphere for, or at least its ionization trail has probably lasted for less than a second, but I managed to pick it up. And if you look down the bottom of the screen, you'll see a bit of writing, because that means that this software has made a log of it so that I can look later on, see when it happened and what have you. And it's also done a screenshot of it, so I can look at the various things. I don't need to be watching them all the time. This is the sort of screenshot that you might get with a slightly bigger grain of sand size meteor. This is a much bigger meteor. It's lasted a few seconds. It's probably done a little bit of an explosion as it hits the Earth's atmosphere, and in fact you'll see a second meteor coming up behind it. And here's one that's lasted, what did I say those vertical lines were? 5 seconds. This is 5, 10, 15, 20, about 17 seconds the ionization trail lasted for this one. So that in itself is quite fun to look at. You can go back and look at all the traces, that screenshots that you've got over a few hours. Sometimes you might get a dozen, 2 dozen maybe meteors an hour. Sometimes you don't get any at all. I talked about the program producing a log file. It produces a log file, one file per day, and this is from December 2017. And within each log file, you get a load of numbers looking like this, one line for every potential meteor detection. It's the first set of data that's important. It's the time that the meteor detection started. And the last number is important. It gives you an idea in fairly arbitrary units as to how long the meteor lasted. Again, it's numbers. If you like that sort of thing, fine. But much better if you feed into an Excel program and give yourself a little bit of a visual indication. Now then, important, I'm going to be talking about these colorgrams a little bit, so it's important you understand what they are. Along the top, you have the days of the month, starting off with the 1st of February 2019, Valentine's Day somewhere in the middle, up to the 28th of February, and obviously 29th, 30th, 31st are blank for obvious reasons. The rose, that represents hours of the day. It's labelled on the left-hand side. Midnight at the top, going down, wake-up time, breakfast midday, halfway down, supper time, glass of wine time, bedtime, down the bottom. And you'll see there's a colour chart at the side, giving you an idea of the relative number of meteors that you detected each hour. Each square is an hour. Red being a lot of meteors, green a few, blue not very many, and black none at all. Now the first thing you'll notice from this, and it happens to all of them, is that I'm detecting more meteors in the early hours in the morning than I am in the afternoon. And that's because of the rotation of the Earth and its travel around the sun. if you think, I haven't got a pointer on this, but if you think where you are at 6 a.m., 6 o'clock in the morning, you'll see that you're in the leading edge of the Earth, and you're ploughing into the meteoroids, the dust that's out there in space. And just as you get more dead flies on the windscreen at the front of your car than you do on your back window, so that's where you collect the most meteors. And then it starts to be quite interesting looking over various months. Here's a colourgram from December 2017, and you'll notice a peak around the 13th of December, about 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Look back to previous years, 2016, 2017, 2018, the same peak appearing at the same time. This obviously is the Geminid meteor shower, and incidentally, you can see, and it's particularly clear over 2018. Don't bother to get up and look at the Geminids at 11 o'clock at night. There aren't any. It's a very sharp peak, this meteor shower. You need to be up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to stand a chance of seeing it. Here are some other meteor showers. Some of them, on the left, fairly clear. Not so on the right. Small meteor showers where I think you need a fairly good imagination to convince yourself you can see any increase in meteor activity. Let's look at the Perseids. Here they are in August 2018, centred around 12th, 13th, 14th of August. Ignore the stuff around the 6th of August. That's local interference. Just ignore it. Here's the display from 2018 and I think 2017. The big black bit on 2017 is where Windows 10 decided to do an update the day after I went on holiday, but it gives you a chance of comparing the Perseid peak on 1 year with the next. Again, ignore the stuff around the 6th of August. Another way of displaying the number of meteors you get each day during a month is like this. The Excel program will do this for you. And you can also, for example, compare the meteors you got in August 2018 with those in December 2018. And you can look at the different shapes of the graphs and the different numbers. And you'll notice, for example, there are considerably more meteors in terms of number from the Geminids than the Perseids. And I've had my system running now for about 3.5 years. I find this every single year. The Geminids, in terms of numbers, give you a greater count. Even a little bit further than this, I have a friend named John Berman who runs a collaboration. He gets people from all over England who are doing this sort of thing to send him their log files, and then he'll analyse and put them together, find out what events we all got at the same time. And as I say here, he tends to stream his meteor detection feed more or less continually. So have a look at that. You've got the website. I'm streaming my own feed at the moment, but probably only just during the course of this birthday party, and I'll give you the link to that if I haven't already, right at the end of the talk. So John has got us all to send in our logs from August 2018. Mine's the thick blue line. You can see my peak I told you to ignore on the 6th. One of the reasons I'm telling you to ignore it is nobody else is getting it there. Average the whole thing out though, and you'll see quite a nice Perseid peak around the 12th, 13th of August. Also, if we all detect the same event, and quite often we do, he might ask us to send in the screenshots. Now, these are screenshots of the same event. The horizontal scale is different in some of them, but this was quite a powerful meteor. Mine's the bottom left one, so what did it last? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 seconds at least. Really quite a good reflection. Lots of people spotted it from all over England, and indeed UK Mon managed to get a photograph of it, which is something you don't normally get, but gives you and it's quite a nice thing when you compare what you saw with what they get. So that's how I have been detecting meteors in the rain. It's cloudy at the moment. I've still been doing it. I haven't heard any big events in the back. But if you want a link to anything that I've talked about, my streaming, information about where to buy a FunQ Dongle Pro, where to download this free software from, any of the various articles about how to do it, that's where you want to go to, www.cluer.com Meteor, and then maybe you too will be able to do astronomy in the rain.
Okay. Right, that was great. Thank you very much, Graham. Very informative. Excellent. Right, from radio astronomy, we're going to go over to another member now, Anna. She's going to be connecting any second now. Whilst she's doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit more and tell you what's going to be coming up afterwards. Anna's going to do a section, I think, on what she was doing during the lockdown period. Anna was doing a lot of astronomy in the early hours of the night stroke morning. We're seeing some wonderful conjunctions of planets and beautiful scenes of the moon. She did take some really nice photographs just with a basic BSIA telescope setup. It was really nice to see, and just being up at that time of night, things are really quiet and very peaceful, and you're looking up at the beautiful scenes up in the sky. Is one of the best stress relievers that there is. Good for the soul, you might say. It's a nice thing indeed. If you, incidentally, if you are out in the late evening stroke just before dawn sky, you can see quite a few planets up there. Quite prominent in the sky will be Mars, which will be slowly reaching its opposition in October, I believe. And that will be towards the eastern part of the sky. If you look towards the western part of the sky, you'll see Jupiter and Saturn very close to each other, and they'll be getting closer and closer to each other as the year goes along. And at the end of the year, in late December, there is going to be a wonderful conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn together. They are going to be extraordinarily close. If you have a wide-angle camera lens or a short focal length telescope which gives you a wide view of the sky, you should be able to get both of them in the same shot, which is almost unheard of. It's an excellent opportunity for both visual and photographic astronomers to take to view and to take some wonderful pictures of something very rare in the sky. So I'm just going to check over here. Is everything? Oh, no, we're still having a little trouble connecting with Anna. So in the meantime, if that carries on, we might just cut to a video from Pumani, who is an editor at the Sky at Night magazine, and he has a presentation to show us about, if you remember earlier on, Phil Halper showed you a very technical way with a small telescope, how you might take deep space photographs. Pumani has another way of doing it entirely. So we'll go over to that now, and once we've finished, hopefully we will have sorted out our connection properly with Anna, and she can present her section to you. So if everything's okay, I'll hand you over to Paul Man's segment. Incidentally, there was meant to be a presentation of his photographs that he took with the equipment that he's going to show to you. I didn't have the time to make that part of the show, but what I will do, because some of the pictures are really nice, I'll post them with his permission as a small gallery on our Facebook page so people can have a look at that, because I do think some of them are very nice to view. So So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Paul Money.
First of all, let us say congratulations to the Baker Street Irregular Astronomers on your 10th.
For Paul Money's video. So we'll transition to that now. Thanks for your patience.
I don't understand what's going on.
No?
I'm sorry.
Oh, well,
No, I'm sorry. It was all right, but when I transition, it just doesn't play the
okay,
sound.
So what about Anna?
We don't have Anna. Yeah, we have some technical issues. I'm sorry. We don't have Anna at the moment, and for some reason our video is not really playing with sound, which is weird. No, we don't have Anna. Is she trying to call us?
Well, she's
I don't know what to say because I don't see any requests. Okay, give me a second. Okay, in the meantime, I'm gonna try to make the video work because this is, yeah, but okay, let's see. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, we have some technical, as you can see, and we try to resolve this. For some reason, we don't have audio in the video. We try to play Paul's video, but the player just giving us some hard time. So at the moment, we try to figure out, and in the meantime, Nick is trying to get hold of Anna. Okay, so just please give us a second. Sadly, things are definitely not going the way we are expected it to happen. It's just
To buy it. So here it is. I made a slight change to it. So I've added an extra counterweight because it's surprising when you change the eyepieces.
I made it work.
If you put the heavy eyepieces on.
Yes. Okay. So we have the video working.
Garden, here in Horncastle, Lincolnshire, and welcome to my little telescope. Oh, sorry, the rather large telescope. First of all, let us say congratulations to the Baker Street Irregular Astronomers on your 10th anniversary. Well done, guys. It takes a lot to run a society, I know, and it's a real achievement to be able to keep going for 10 years, and let's hope you can keep going on and on and on, regardless of the pandemic. Well, the reason why I'm doing this is because Nick asked me to have a little chat about using a large telescope. And for those who know me as the reviews editor for the Sky Night magazine will know that I fell in love with the review I was doing of the Stargate 500, a 20-inch Newtonian reflector as a Dobsonian in an Altaz configuration, which is powered, so it's go-to as well, which is the other thing I like the appeal of. And so I managed to convince the wife to let me find the money to buy it. So here it is. I made a slight change to it, so that I've had an extra counterweight, because it's surprising when you change the eyepieces. If you put the heavy eyepieces, I've got a Nagler Ethos 21mm, and that's quite a chunky eyepiece. Surprising how it just changed the balance very slightly. But Nick wanted to know a little bit about the deep sky, so let's just turn it round so you can see some of the features. So let's do a little twirl, Anthea, for those who remember. We'll bring it round to face into the actual camera, in this case my wife's iPad. So here we are, the 20-inch f4 Dobsonian, so it's quite a long, short focal length, 2000mm, and a standard sort of typical focuser with a bit of fine-tuning, which is really useful, and a fairly standard finder scope. But I have to say, once you've done the go-to, as a rule, that thing becomes redundant, because the go-to usually finds every object spot on. So it is a bit difficult to explain why I'd buy something like this when I've got a bit of light pollution. However, the thing is, I use it as a light bucket to compensate for long exposures. I've got a bit of light pollution around, we've got an industrial estate nearby, but it's surprising what I've been able to do with this. And one of the things I really like doing was actually using it for photography. Now, that wasn't really the plan. This is a visual instrument mainly for sort of like the deep sky and for planetary. But I found that attaching a Canon camera to the front here, A, I could get focus, and B, surprisingly, 10-second exposures, if you do enough of them, is surprising what you can actually take. But let's just give you an idea of the height of this thing. So let's tilt it up, and you'll see why there were times when I used a step ladder to get to the top. So you can see here, I've not got it powered up at the moment, but you'll probably notice it's probably gone straight out the top, or probably really close to the top of the screen. So yeah, it's yeah, one has to jump a bit. No, not I. I've got a step ladder. I don't often use it because I've also got an old crate, which is really, really useful. But I say the vast majority of the time you don't view up there, you don't view at that height, you view lower down. So in actual fact, this is why I've counterbalanced it more accurately, so that I focus it, get it collimated for about halfway along the sky. That's about right for this. And then I usually attach my camera. I have used it visually a lot, and in particular with H-beta 2-inch filter, and the views have been absolutely stunning. They're like photographs. So even with light pollution, when you use a HB filter, hydrogen beta filter, it's surprising what you can actually see. The Crescent Nebula was just stunning. The Veil Nebula, I nearly shouted out, and this was at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I probably frightened the neighbours when I shouted out how amazing the actual views were. So it's a real big beast, and although some would say that it needs a very, very dark sky, I've been chuffed with what I can actually achieve with imaging with it. So what we'll do now is we'll actually take a look at some of the pictures I've actually taken with the Stargate 500, and I hope you'll be pleased with them as well. But bear in mind, this is a brilliant visual instrument as well. So there we are, let's turn over to the images. Thank you.
Hi there. Right, so thank you very much. We're going to try and get back to Anna now and see if we can get over our technical difficulties. Okay, cool. Right, we just try and get in contact with Al, send a little message to line up. So we'll see how that's going to go in just in a few seconds' time. If that's not successful, we'll go straight to one of the final segments, which will be myself and Zaboli here, and we're going to be talking about the International Space Station amongst other things, and for lunar imaging, and some of the opportunities and classes that we've got coming up as well, that will be available to the public. But that's to come. Right now, we're trying to get Anna back. If you bear with me just a second, I'll see if I might going. Just a minute, please.
Right, we need to do the, but we can just go for a 5 minute break,
Right.
and then
Okay.
we will
Yeah.
reestablish the meet
Okay.
call. Yeah.
Right. Just to save some painful silences and so on and so forth, we're going to go on a shall we say a 10-minute intermission. Fine. Okay. Confident with 5. We're going to go on a 5-minute intermission now. We're not going to stop broadcasting. We're just going to put in an intermission screen. And afterwards, one way or the other, you're either going to get myself and Zabby back, or we'll have Anna online for you. Okay? So we'll transition over to the intermission screen for you now. We're back in 5 minutes. Okay? Thank you very much.
First of all, I can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, few technical issues. So I had recorded the movie, but anyway, I'll try to say everything I said before. First of all, I just want to say that I'm very pleased and happy to be part of this group. Happy anniversary. But it's recording again.
What's going on?
Did you record what I because
Yes, we can
I'm
hear
not-
you.
We can hear you just fine.
but I can hear what I'm saying. Why?
Yeah, you need to mute your mic for now until you have your conversation. But just mute your microphone.
But if I mute my microphone,
Or sorry, not your microphone. Your speaker. Sorry. Yeah, just mute it. And once you finish, you will put it back. You don't need to hear us for now. Once you finish with your presentation, then you put the volume because it's echoing back. That's the problem. Yeah, go ahead. Just mute it completely and then just go ahead. There you go. And you're not gonna hear us
the
back.
speaker I should.
Yes,
Not
yes,
the microphone.
yes. Yeah, I was talking gibberish. Yes. Put your speaker down. Microphone is all right.
This is crazy. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, happy 10th anniversary. And I'm not the best person to do a lecture like that. Should I continue?
Yes.
I'm not the best person to do a lecture like that because I'm very forgetful, but I agreed to participate just to show that even a novice like me, if someone that doesn't have any knowledge, is still very welcome in this group. And I feel very honored to be invited. So I was going to talk before about my why I chose this telescope. So the telescope I chose, it's not a huge one, but the quality is very sharp, and that's the most important thing for me. Because when I was looking for a telescope, Simon, who's one of the founders of this group, but also the owner of White Screen Center, I said, "Oh, I want a mini Hubble. I want a marvelous telescope," and he said, "Anna, you have to get the one you are going to use the most." And that was truly the best advice I got, because what I needed is something portable, because all my viewings, all my stargazing, it's from my window. I don't have a garden and I live in central London. So I needed something that would be extremely portable. And this one, the whole mount, like the whole setup, it's about 6.5 kilos. And I also wanted, the most important, something that I could take in my carry-on baggage in the airplane. Because sometimes I might fly away just to see the sky, and if they lost my like my luggage and my telescope was in there, you would lose the whole purpose of the trip. So, and that's one of the things I love the most. Anyway, so now I'm starting to do astrophotography, but like really, really baby steps with it. So what you have to do, you have to take this part and add extension tube, and then you put the barlows, and then you put the camera in there. Anyway, I'm the worst person to talk about these technical details, so I'll leave this to the guys. You can talk to anyone else better than me. So, but today, sorry, I can see my screen. It's here. Sorry. Okay, I just realized that. Anyway, I want to speak about Jupiter. I feel embarrassed. I just realized the screen. Okay. I want to talk about Jupiter and Saturn, because not only because it's the only thing I can see from here,
but also because they are my favorites. Jupiter is 2.5 times more massive than the rest of the planets in the solar system combined, and it spins really fast. So one day the rotation it's 10 hours. So imagine if I'm always late in this planet that's 24 hours, I cannot imagine myself how I would cope in Jupiter. You have to remember when you look at the sky and you see Saturn and Jupiter, and you think, oh, this is so distant, but they are truly part of our existence. Maybe if they weren't there, maybe we wouldn't be here. When you think it's typical, but when you see other solar systems that observable that we can see, we imagine that they are all like ours, and it's not. Normally, closer to the sun where we are, like the position where you are, you would find much larger planets and a very rocky, huge, and toxic atmosphere. But I think because of the balance where Jupiter is and Saturn that held Jupiter back, we are able to exist. Okay, so let me read because I forget. So also Jupiter, because of this huge force, it holds the asteroid belt, so it avoids other huge rocks to hit us. So, Jupiter, it's remaining from the formation of the sun, and there was an intricate relation between the gravitational pull of the sun with the one of Jupiter. We believed, like the formation of planets is still being studied. So we don't have a finite theory that says that's it. But because of the computer simulations, they believe this is the most accurate one. So we believe that Jupiter cleared the path for us, and Saturn helped because of the balance, because those are the two most massive planets. With this telescope, I can see the magnificent view of the equatorial bands. I can see in a clear night, I can see the red spot. I can see the moons of Jupiter. And of course, I can see the moons of Saturn as well. Jupiter, good to remember, it will be in opposition on July 15 and 14 and 15. Opposition is when you have the sun, you have the Earth, and then you have the planet. So the sun is shedding out its light on the planet, so we can see every little detail. For Mars is especially important this year because it's closest, and so NASA, ESA, in Russia, China, and United Arab Emirates have scheduled their launches. Okay, Saturn, I must say, don't let Jupiter hear me, but it's my favorite. How can you not fall in love with Saturn? Saturn will be in opposition on July 20th, so please don't miss this opportunity. You will have to take advantage and observe it now. Hold on. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can. No problem at all.
Okay, sorry.
You are great. You're doing perfect.
You're doing just fine.
Okay. So anyway, what I was going to say, yes, you have to take the opportunity to see Saturn now, because like, how can I explain? It flips. So just like a pizza, if I show you like this, you can see the whole pizza, but as I turn, you can see thinner and thinner. So, I forgot, I have a picture here to show you. Oops, sorry. Here. So you can see by this picture how in 2024 and 2025, 25th, it will be 2025 will be very hard to see. So we have to take advantage, because we just have like this year, the next one, and the other one to see clear. And then, of course, with time you will flip again. But that's you have to take advantage now. The rings are so amazing for me, because like they are approximately 300,000 kilometers wide. Like, this is the distance between the planet and the moon. Imagine all of these being rings, and they are formed by pieces of ice, huge pieces of ice, and that's why we can see them. That's why they are so reflective, and it's thought that they were created by a moon, that an ice moon that got crashed by the gravitational force of Saturn, and we are lucky to be seeing it, because they believe it probably was formed when the dinosaurs were on Earth. So it's not as old as Saturn. That's why they are so new, they clean. But also, Saturn, we are very lucky to be able to see it, because Saturn eats the rings internally. But there is a moon called Enceladus that it throws vapor, water, and ice into the ring, feeding it from the outside. And Enceladus, this vapor water and everything that it ejects, was one of the biggest discoveries of the 21st century, because it has the most complex compounds, organic compounds. So maybe we have like little brothers being born sometime soon in Enceladus. Who knows? Anyway, another thing that I want to say, December. I think Nick already said that, the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. But anyway, I'll say it again. It's going to be on December 21st. Please don't miss that. Prepare your telescopes and do it. Anyway, I'm so sorry. This is my first presentation. What I was thinking to do, it didn't work. Yes, I do have pictures. So for you to have an idea how difficult my life is, you can see through this picture that you can see Saturn and Jupiter. This was a couple of months ago. And okay. Okay, where is the next one? Photos, where? Okay, again, sorry guys. Really sorry about this. Look, this is an airplane passing in Jupiter. This is Saturn, but this, it's without any magnification. So I had to stretch the image. And that's it, Guy. I will not take any more of your time. There are much better people to speak out there. And I just want to say that I wish you all the best, great health, keep healthy, keep safe, and clear and dark skies to you all. And please join our group and be part of it, because I love everything. Thank you so much. Good night.
All right, thank you very, very much for that, Anna. That was a charming presentation. I know you were nervous, but believe me, we all are. So thank you very much for that. That was actually really nice, charming, and interesting. What we're going to do now, we'd really, really like to go back to Eric's presentation that he gave, his video.
Hello, hello, everyone's atmosphere, and to enjoy. Hello, irregulars. How are you doing? We're still stuck at home, of course, and And we are
Hello again. Okay, that was quicker than we thought. So hopefully now we'll go over to Eric with sound, and well, I'm just hoping it's going to work now. So here we go. Here with Eric.
hello, irregulars. How are you doing? We're still stuck at home, of course, and we are hoping to get to the hub sometime in 2020. Maybe autumn, maybe winter, may have a Christmas party. Who knows? I'm going to talk about my solar picnics and my moon days and social events that I've organised and what I've been looking at during the lockdown. So solar picnics, usually on the Sunday closest to Midsummer's Day. I organise a picnic in Regent's Park on Hanover Green, not by the hub, but on Hanover Green, and about 20 people congregate there to look at the sun under special filters on the telescopes, white filters, hydrogen alpha filters, to look at different parts of the sun's atmosphere and to enjoy each other's company and a nice picnic, a bit of liquid lunch perhaps, and we look at items on the sun, like sunspots. This year, we were meant to be there on last Sunday, on June 20th. I'm recording this on Wednesday the 24th, but it was not a very nice day. Bit grey, 100% cloud cover, very little activity on the sun. So I'm not upset we missed Sunday Solar Picnic 2020. Next year, I've booked a place in my diary and I hope to meet there on Sunday, June the 20th, 2021. So put that in your diary now. Also, Moon Day is when we look at the moon on a Monday, Moon Day. And this year it was on March the 2nd at the hub. I think it was probably the last meeting we had at the hub. And that was a great success. Looked at the moon at first quarter, which is the best time to look at the moon, because the terminator, the division between light and dark, is vertical, and the moon is up in the sky all day from about 11 o'clock until way past sunset. So it's a great time to see. So I like to look at the moon on Moon Day on a Monday. And I've checked the diary, and the next first quarter on a Monday is the Monday, Moon Day, 13th of September, 2021. So put that in your diary as well. So we shall have a moon gazing, lunar gazing evening on that day. This year in January, I organised a little social event in Baker Street, little restaurant. Probably about, 12, 15 people turned up. Just to chat, talk about astro stuff, in some coffee, a little bit of wine, a little bit of food. And I hope to do that again, certainly before the end of the year. So that would be nice. We got Sunday, Moon Day, social events to look at. Now, what have we been doing at home when we've been during our lockdown? Well, on my terrace, which is out here on the sunny, it's about 28 degrees at the moment, very warm day. I've been looking at not only the moon, but also nearly all the planets. I think I've seen all the planets apart from Mercury and Uranus. So it's always good to see the planets with a small telescope, like my little 3-inch refractometer. Why do I keep saying refractometer? Refractor. Refractometer is GEMS, refractor is astronomy. Got to keep those two lives separate. Or a pair of binoculars. So we shall tell you what's to see in the next few months via our website or our social media. So please keep looking at that. So the only thing that remains for me to say is keep well, hope to see you soon, and keep looking up.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Eric. We finally managed to sort out the sound. Sorry about that. Right, so there's only there's only one more section to go. Over there behind me, you'll see a lovely model of the International Space Station. That should be a clue as to the next part. It will be Zaboli, and he'll be talking, and then I'll join in after he's done his main segment, and we'll talk together. And it will be about the International Space Station, amongst other things, but mostly about the station. We're going to take just a short break before that, quite literally 5 minutes. We'll be back in exactly 5 minutes' time. We just need to prepare a few things here, and that seems to be actually working well. We'll stick to that format next time. So just to make things flow a little bit more smoothly, the next time we do this, we'll have intermissions in between each segment, just to make sure we've got everything ready for you. Today, this whole production has been by the seat of our pants, I kid you not. We've been at this for hours and hours trying to cobble it together with sellotape and string, but it's just about worked. So we're thankful for being able to actually do the transmission in the first place. But I won't waste any more time. We'll go on a 5-minute break now. We'll be back, and we'll conclude the rest of the program for you. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Hello everybody. Hi, it's Sabi. My name is Sabi, so we just thought I'm gonna go in straightforward and take over this segment. Hi everybody. If you've never been to the Baker Street regular astronomers meeting at Regent's Park, then you just missed a great show in London. I've been myself living in London for about 11 years, and I got into this sort of hobby through these gentlemen, Nick and Simon Bennett, and I bought my first telescope through Widescreen Center. And I have to tell you that that was a life changer. I didn't know that it's gonna take me on a journey that it took lately, and I'm gonna talk about this weird journey that I'm doing and how I ended up with taking photos of the International Space Station and Starlink satellites and all kinds of weird stuff orbiting around Earth. But before I go there, I definitely would like to highlight to you how much the Baker Street Irregular Astronomers actually means to me. I do remember my first couple of meetings when I kind of felt lost. I've seen regulars having chat. They kind of, you could see that they know each other, have seen each other before. So yeah, I desperately tried to fit in, and it's a great thing that eventually I got sort of had a nice warm welcome, and all those people who are actually part of this great team, the organizers and all the regular members who don't mind the effort and the enthusiasm to carry their telescopes, occasionally some really large telescopes to Regent's Park, and actually just giving the opportunity to people who actually come and visit this free, absolutely free event to have their first experience to see planets, the moon. In summertime, sometimes we catch a glimpse of the sun as well. So yes, it's a perfect way to start. And I have a very short anecdote for you. I do not remember. I'm never gonna forget. There was a pair of parents, and they came to me with their 5-year-old kid, and that little kid, he couldn't even barely talk. You know, he was slurring a little bit, but when we started talking, he asked me what my favorite planet is, and when I said to him, I said, "What's your favorite planet?" And he said, "I don't have a favorite planet." He was speaking like this. He was so cute, and he told me that I have a favorite moon, by the way, which is Ganymede. So my mind already went crazy. And then the next question, when they queued up again and looked through the telescope, he asked me, "What do I think about neutron stars?" And then when I said, "Okay, if these kind of things happening in here, you know, I have restored a faith in the future, because it means that these young individuals get motivated by us, what we are doing. So it's a huge pleasure to do that. So please allow me to introduce you to my website. Basically, it's called Space Station Guys, and I purely created this website for one and only reason. I wanted to share with people how to do manual International Space Station photography. So I started from the basics, and I didn't know exactly where to start. So in this website, I'm just gonna go through because this sounds the logical way to introduce you to International Space Station photography. I think the first and probably most important thing is, when can we see the International Space Station? So on my website, if you ever go to spacestationguys.com, if you click on Guide to Find ISS, then on this page, if you scroll down, you will see all the useful sites that I'm using at the moment, which will tell me when exactly I can expect the next flyby of the International Space Station. So you can just scroll down. There are more difficult ones and there are easier ones. These days we have mobile phones. So I would like to say to everybody that if you scroll down a bit, there is one section that says useful apps for mobile devices for ISS passes and transits. So here there are a couple of applications for mobile phones which anybody can download basically. And once you have that on your phone running, it will set by default your location, and basically it will tell you when is your next International Space Station flyby is due. So how do I actually photograph the International Space Station? Because once we already know now that when we can observe it, even with our naked eyes, easily observable, how do I do this? So you will see I have a Dobsonian type telescope, and this is an animation where you will see me actually manually tracking the International Space Station. So previously I was practicing on aircrafts, which is basically a perfect target for practicing, because the principle is the same. What we are trying to achieve is that we are using a finder scope with, it can be a red dot finder, a tail rod, or just a normal optical finder scope, and you align it super accurately with your main telescope, whatever that telescope happens to be. And then basically once you've done that, and you took an extremely sharp focus with a Batinov mask, which is a focus aid, or whatever method one is using, then basically you just try to replicate the motion of the International Space Station as it zooms past across the sky. So that's the basic principle behind it. Just to show you, I have a couple of photographs that probably will bring you the mood to actually try yourself whatever equipment you have at home. It's basically my definitely, so my experience is that you can use basically any kind of telescopes. I have used Maxtop type of telescopes, Newtonians, and now I'm using a Dobsonian. So these are totally different makes, and obviously a refractor, if it's big enough, if it has a high enough focal length. Here you can see some of my works. Basically, I'm using a high frame rate camera. This is what I'm using to capture as many frames as possible. So imagine that this camera is capable of doing just over 100 frames per second. So even though that my tracking is not super accurate, I gather enough sharp frames that if I get rid of the blurry ones, and if I do a little bit of post-processing, I can just string them together and create these incredible animations. And I realized that animations do much more justice for the International Space Station, because as the orientation slightly changes, sometimes it reveals us some really interesting prospects. By the way, we have the SpaceX Crew Dragon Endeavour spacecraft docked to the International Space Station at the moment, and I will come back to that point in 1 second. So on these photographs, what we take, you can see on the left, this is Philip Smith's photograph, and on the right is mine. So you can see this Dragon spacecraft docked to the Earth-facing nadir side of the International Space Station. You can see this is how it looks from behind. This is the trunk section, and from the ground, with absolutely conventional telescopes, you can actually take photographs which shows the cylindrical shape of that spacecraft. But I have a better animation which probably give you a better view on the International Space Station. But you can see things like the beam, the Bigelow expandable habitat, that white blob there. This is, for instance, the Canadarm. So you can discover quite interesting features. Here again, this is Canadarm. You can see. So yes. So there's a whole lot of things that we can capture. So you can see on this video, for instance, what you're gonna see now. This is basically, we took this with Nick. He did it from his home. I did it from my home, and there was a third person called Martin Lewis who did it from St. Albans, and we basically captured the Soyuz 13 spacecraft, which was en route to the International Space Station. And from the external camera view, from the Soyuz spacecraft, we know precisely that they were 67 meters apart from each other. So I can guarantee you, I've been doing this for a while now, to actually get this right, it's super difficult, because something always goes crazy. it sounds a little bit like our preparation for this session today. You just prepare for the best, hoping for the best, and then technology just goes and lets you down epically. So yes, so you can see also transit. So this is a 10-inch Newtonian at 250 / 1200 focal length Dobsonian 10-inch telescope. Just Skywatcher made nothing fancy, nothing extra. So with that, with this camera, I was able to capture footages like this one. So the International Space Station was just touching the limb of our lunar surface, but with some clever image processing, you can actually change the perspective totally. So if I step back, you will see here the moon is a steady background, and the International Space Station just zooms past in front of it. But if I step back once, what I did is every single frame I cropped the International Space Station around, and then suddenly the moon is the moving object and the space station is the fixed object. So you completely change your perspective, how you see this whole event. This is another one, what we took with Nick. This was another really promising International Space Station lunar flyby. And then I just show you a couple of more photos from my shots. You can do long exposure shots as well with a basic camera setting. But okay, so this is exciting. So you will see all the currently serving cargo spacecrafts. On the right, a representation photo, and on the right, it's my photograph. So basically, we're talking about a small caravan size object. So like a Ford Transit, or probably not even the size of a Ford Transit van object, traveling around 28,000 kilometers per hour, and they were about 500-600 kilometers from my location. So if you have doubts to actually try whatever telescope you have, please do not hesitate to go out. It's hard, but as once John F. Kennedy said, we're not doing because it's easy, but we're doing it because it's hard. So that's probably the challenge. And I mentioned to you the Crew Dragon spacecraft from SpaceX that current the Demo 2 flight. So this photo was taken almost exactly a year ago, last year, March 2019. And that was the first flight of this Crew Dragon spacecraft, and you can see it docked to the International Space Station. So what I have in my mind is to actually go after this beautiful object. And once we have International Space Station flybys, good ones, then hopefully we are going to take some photos, us amateur ISS photographers in London. Before I show you some of my guest photos, because I invite people to actually come to my website and contributing to it, because this is going to be a hub of International Space Station photographs, long exposure, wide angle, or close-ups, or transits. I will give you a hint of that. But before I go there, I show you what a 10-inch telescope can do. So what you're gonna see here is basically, so this is a Starlink satellite, the commonly hated Starlink satellite. This is the Starlink satellite itself, and that long elongated shape is basically the solar panel of it. And if I go back a bit, I took a photograph of one of the Starlink satellite launches, and what you see here is basically, this is 60 satellites, just about 21 minutes after launch, about 7 minutes after stage separation, and this is the Falcon 9 upper stage. You can clearly see this is a comparison photograph. You can see the engine nozzle, you can see the main body, the structure of the upper stage as well. But I have another satellite, Starlink, but this photo probably does a better justice, because this one here you can see the double chain of 60 satellites. We actually counted them with Martin Lewis, because he was on it as well, and it's 60. So also you can see some tinier objects. These are the tension rods, and this is the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. So you can see some really crazy things with this. If you know exactly where to be, when to be outside, and how to take your photographs, it is incredible what you can do. Well, allow me to show you some of the photographs of the aforementioned Crew Dragon spacecraft. So this is my photo, what I showed you already. This is what it looks like, the Crew Dragon, and this is what it looks like docked to the forward facing module of Harmony module, port of Harmony module. So these are the photographs I'm receiving. This is brand new, this is fresh, this is from I think the 1st of June. So you can see this is the Crew Dragon spacecraft, and this is the HTV cargo spacecraft. This is the Crew Dragon itself. This is again amateur photographs. Here is the Crew Dragon docked to the Harmony module again. So flat earthers, attention, the Earth is not flat, because people are photographing this all over the world. So yes, I'm keep receiving these incredible photographs, and I hope once we are back in track in Europe and America, I'm just hoping to expect even more of these photographs. And just to show you exactly what kind of photographs people can do with their own equipments at home. So this first guy, Andrew McCarthy, is probably one of those guys who just clearly blows one's mind if they will load in a second. So this is a composite color photograph of the moon with the International Space Station at some incredible details. So just take a look at this photograph. This photograph is just staggering how he managed to actually combine the high frame rate camera footages with obviously with some color shots and the International Space Station. And also at the same page you will see some solar transits. This is a Jupiter transit, so if you know exactly where to be, the International Space Station was 810 kilometers away. Some solar transits, again solar transit, beautiful transits. So this is what people can do, but I let you discover this page because it's truly beautiful. So it's in guest photos, and I also show you some of the close-up photographs. So most of these photographs were manually tracked photographs. So it's probably the secret is patience, and you just keep on trying, you never give up. Probably the same secret as everything that if somebody tried to nail or learn something totally new. I'd like to show you some of the truly mind-boggling photos of Philip Smith, because he's using a C14 telescope, and he built a semi-tracker, so a semi-automated tracker. So he's controlling it, but it's electronically tracked. I mean, just take a look at some of these photographs. This is the ones that probably the flat earthers will say, haha, this is fake because it's too good to be true. But this is absolutely feasible with the right. This is, for instance, the ATV spacecraft. If you remember, you can see the X shape of the solar panels, and some of them, I think, some of the photos of Martin Lewis. Sorry for the quick scrolling, but I tried. Yes, so you see, this is Martin Lewis's photo from St. Albans. So this is his UK-based photograph, and you can see the space shuttle. Sadly, we can't see the space shuttle anymore, but one day, hopefully, we're gonna do that. And if you try to read a little bit more about how I do this, so how I do the setups, I have an about/imaging section in my on my website. So you can see here's my first photograph. This is my very first photograph, which looks like a skiing rabbit. Nobody gonna take this away from me. So if you can't see it, this is the ski. This is the rabbit with a tiny little tail. This is the flapping ears, and this is how he's skiing. So it's always going to remain anecdotal. So this is me in front of widescreen center with my scope, just purchased, and this was my very first telescope. I was the happiest person on this planet on that day. So yes, and here you will see tons of videos. In this one, for instance, I clearly explain all the equipment I'm using, so you will see I go step by step through the telescope, tail rod, how do I collimate, all the details that probably one needs. And also I sum it up how much the equipment cost according to the Widescreen Center prices. So I can tell you that if you want to take photographs like myself, you need to spend around £1,300. Not more, not less. Oh, I'm sorry, and a laptop. But I think that's a fair price for something that can bring you the heavens so close. And having said that, I'm not just only taking photos of the International Space Station. I do certain photographs of, let's say, Moon. You can buy a beautiful equatorial platform, which you just put underneath your Dobsonian telescope, and you can track planets, you can track the Moon, and you can just extend the capability of your telescopes. And for visual observation, it's an equatorial platform, so not a tripod, not a mount. It's a platform. So not many distributors are selling, but it's a beautiful tool, and it just expands your basically your capability, and also you can do really nice observations as well. If you are a visual person, you don't need to start pushing your telescope. Instead, you just put it on this equatorial platform, and it does about an hour worth of tracking without touching it. And I tried it at around, I think, 150 times magnification from Wimbledon. I've seen M13 globular cluster, and it just blew my mind, even from Wimbledon. So yes, it's a good tool to have. So yes, we're gonna still hang around a bit, and if you have any questions, just please shoot some in the YouTube comment. We're just gonna go to a 1 minute break. We just swap places with Nick, and then we are back, and we will come to probably the conclusion, right? Okay, so thank you. Thanks for watching me, and Nick will be back in 1 minute. See you guys.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Zoe. That was excellent presentation as always. Incidentally, just before the lockdown came into effect, we were scheduled, Zoe and I, to do some live tutorials, day-long tutorials on how to best image the Moon and the International Space Station. Because of all of the coronavirus business, we weren't able to do that. But now, as you can see, we are back on our feet with our live streaming capabilities. So as of within 2 weeks from now, so either most probably not next weekend, but the weekend after that, we're going to honour all of the people who bought tickets for that. That we said they could join in when we were online. We'll also offer some more tickets for sale for other people who might want to join in as well. We'll advertise all of this sufficiently at another time, just letting everybody know. It helps supplement everything that Javoli was saying, referring to at the end of his segment there. on his website with all of the other people joining in and so on and so forth, and some of the adventures we had pursuing the International Space Station, a bit like cloud chasers, as a matter of fact. At one point, it was really it was good memories, good times. we are fast drawing to the conclusion of this transmission. We've been on for just over 2 hours now, which isn't bad considering all of the technical difficulties that we've had. Speaking of which, thank you for bearing with us when times got tough during the broadcast. We appreciate that. Whilst the last segment was playing, we did have a message sent to us via text from Red Mike Davies, the fourth cardinal point of the 4 committee members, consisting of Simon, Eric, Mike, and myself. He wishes everybody. He sends his best wishes to everybody for this 10th anniversary. We did hope to give a video message, but unfortunately I couldn't include that this time around. It's a shame. We always like Red Mike. I know you're watching there, so thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate you along with everybody else that comes along. Hopefully in subsequent broadcasts we can include everybody once we improve at this setup a bit. As I said, it really has been seat of the pants tonight, but I'm glad we've pulled it off to the end. And just like I had a thought basically whilst everybody else was talking. I did mention at the beginning of the broadcast my first experience of walking in with only 7 people around a few telescopes, and look what it's turned into, this amazing phenomenon in central London for astronomers. So I'm hoping these broadcasts will go the same way from these humble beginnings to something more significant in the future. That would gladden me. That would really make me happy if I saw it take off like that. Having said that, I'm going to draw things to a close. I would like to say a very, very big thank you to everybody who gave any kind of input into this, whether it's you guys out there just watching us, to all of the committee members. Thank you very much to Eric, to Simon, to Carl, who did work in the background and was meant to be here today but was called off on duty, to Mike. Really big thank you to everybody who went to great effort and length to make videos for us, like Graham, like Anna, like Phil, like Zabi behind us here, everybody who was involved, heartfelt thanks. We've been here for 10 years, we're looking to do a lot more, so with all of that being said, I'd like to wish everybody a very good night. We will continue with these live broadcasts whenever we can. Some of the next ones I might do some small ones. Recently I was playing some Carl Sagan audiobooks. I think I'll continue with that. I'll play the whole of the Pale Blue Dot in 4 parts, 1 part every weekend for a couple of hours. But other than that, I will say thank you and wish everybody a good night. It's been great having everybody here. Thank you very much and have a good night. See you everybody. Okay.